Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to Health for Naija podcast. I have a very special guest with me, Dr. Alugo. Dr. Tolulope Alugo has been on Health for Naija podcast, and happy to have her here again. And I'll give you an intro, and Dr. Alugo can tell us a bit more about her work and what she's doing in the field of mental health and kids. So Dr. Lugo is a child and adolescent psychiatrist who empowers youth mental health by educating parents and caregivers about disorders while ensuring they care for their own mental health. She's the founder of St. John Children and Adolescent Psychiatric Program, St. John CAP, where she's a clinician, mental health advocate, and podcast host. Welcome. So I know we're going to talk about a lot of things today. And I'm going to just dive straight in and I'm going to ask my first question. So I have two questions for you. So my first question is this. We hear a lot about social media and how it's messing up the kids. So there was an article I read about 2 weeks ago, and that's why I reached out to you to do this podcast. And I had some concerns because it was saying that excessive social media exposure is affecting children in an adverse way. So can you tell me what are the ways social media is affecting a child's emotional health?
Hey, thank you, Dr. Noha, for having me today. It's really great to be back on Niger, Health for Niger.
Thank
So I'm going to start first by saying, like everything, social media has some of its benefits. So in answering your question, I will start with not all social media access is bad, and then I will then come to talk about the emotional health implications that may arise from excessive social media use. So we know that teenagers use social media for forging connections, particularly during COVID. This really became important to maintain and to forge connections, to receive and to offer emotional support to their peer group, to express their creativity. So you'd see teens doing different, acting out little skits or sharing music and so on and so forth. So there is some good parts to social media. But then you're right, there are concerns about the negative impact on social media on emotional health. And in fact, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry actually put out a position paper just because we're so concerned about what this can do to a teenager's mental health. And there are a number of things. Number one, the excessive exposure to, this surreal world can make it difficult for a youth to delineate between what is real and what is not real. So, for example, if they're exposed to negative content, people, for example, maybe who have an eating disorder, who are self-harming or using substances, they begin to think that this is the norm. And so it becomes something that they think this is normal, everybody should do it, or everybody can do it. Then we know that it can foster some unhealthy habits. So the good old going to play outside, play with neighbors may become really diminished, where a child may just want to be on their phone or on the internet constantly. And we know that the brain reward centers can be activated by social media use. So you get this pleasure from somebody liking a comment or a picture you posted, and it has an addictive potential. So people don't want to go to sleep when they should be asleep. They're on their phones. They don't want to play outside. They don't want to meet people in person because they're just hooked on social media. Again, there's the exposure to dangerous people. So adults with predatory behavior are out there pretending to be children, and you have no way of knowing who they really are. So children are exposed to adults who are preying on them for sexual purposes, asking for inappropriate content from them. They also may not know the limits of confidentiality, so they're really oversharing about their personal information. The information may get hacked or stolen, identity may get hacked. So many things. We know that a child who is not sleeping has a risk of being depressed. A child who is not interacting with people their age group has challenges with their mental health. And then they may not be doing their homework, family relationships may be diminished or strained. So all of those things increase the risk of mental health challenges. And then there's the very common cyberbullying. So we're seeing a lot of cyberbullying where it just takes somebody posting a negative picture or negative comment about a youth and it just goes viral. And that, in my practice, I have seen that be very life-changing.
I can just imagine. So what you mentioned that kind of piqued my interest was that surreal experience where people cannot differentiate surreal from reality. So those lines are blurred. And that is really a cause for concern because I think that leads to abnormal behaviors, right? That can trigger violence. And, and you mentioned the cyber bullying, cyber stalking, trolling. So all those things, they do have negative impact on people. They can cause anxiety, right? And they can really damage a person's psyche. You see, like you said, because there are people out there who, for whatever reason, decide they're just going to troll people online. And I think because kids are not that mature, sometimes they don't know how to handle those emotions. So they can be quite damaging. So that's a very good point you touched on. You covered all the adverse effects of social media. You did mention that there are some benefits to social media, especially during the pandemic. So what are the steps, sometimes what are the steps parents or caregivers can take to support their youth? For instance, there are some parents who they didn't grow up in technology era. Some parents don't even know how to operate a cell phone, not to talk of a laptop or a computer. So how do parents navigate the use or regulate the use of social media in their kids?
Well, we can't remain ignorant. So parents have to inform themselves. Of course, these kids are always trying to be a step ahead, but then you just can't completely bury your head in the sand and say, "Oh, I know nothing about social media." You have to try. And so, number one, I know that in the US, for example, there is an age limit for social media access, which is 13. But actually, in 8 to 12-year-olds, research has shown that up to 40% of them are accessing social media. So, as a parent, you really want to know what your child is doing. That starts from at what age do you give them a digital device? At what age are they having access to a phone that's the smartphone? So before the age of 12, if your child needs to have a phone, maybe to contact you or for you to be able to monitor their movements, maybe use a dumb phone that can only just call or text. If you're going to give them a smartphone, maybe you need to begin to add apps as they get more mature. So access to the phone is important. Do you have a way of tracking their online activity to know which ones are safe? And then also, how much time are they spending? Screen time is a real problem, in the youth, including TV. So in all, how much time is your child spending on their phone or, on a digital device? Do you have a time when they have to give up their phone to you? I mean, some families will say 8 o'clock, put your phone outside the door or whatever. Do you have screen-free times? Like, okay, when we are at the table, there's no screen. There's no phones in your bedroom, and so on and so forth. And then another thing is you might want to follow them or become their friends on these social media platforms,
Right.
but have a conversation as to are you allowed to comment on their content or not? Or can you just be there quiet and be quiet? So we'll follow them, be their friend, and I think this really all boils down to your relationship with your child. It's important to have an open relationship where your child feels comfortable communicating with you, or even if you're a teacher or a caregiver, whatever role you play in the youth of a child, you want to have that open communication where they can come to you when they run into difficulties. And so if you notice they're on their phone constantly, You want to say, you didn't do your homework yesterday, you did it quite late. Was it because you were on the phone? Is this getting excessive? So you want to have that open communication with them. You want to talk to them about the dangers of being online, what they should and should not share. So they really know that you're trying to keep them safe. And internet safety, privacy settings, and then most of all, you also want to model good behavior yourself. All of us, including myself, we're guilty of constantly looking at the phone, it's pinging, Instagram, so on and so forth. So you want to model good behavior so your children don't think they're just saying that, but they're doing something different. This was one of the ways I can think of to make them pick up.
I think modeling the good behavior is important because kids amplify what the parents do. Kids are very observant. They watch the parents and they just amplify what they do. So everything is centered around our cell phones now, our the way we retrieve information, global information. We don't read newspapers anymore, right? And we don't watch the news anymore. Some people get their news from TikTok, right? And so everything is centered, communication with family, friends is all on the smartphone. Education, you do your continuing medical education on the phone, you access health information, you access medical calculators on the phone, you do your banking on the phone. Everything is really centered around this phone. That's the way it is now, with technology. I remember growing up in Nigeria in the 70s, and TV did not come on till 4 p.m. And by 9 o'clock, TV was done. You would see those rainbow lines across the screen, and they just, you would sit waiting patiently for this TV to come on out, you know. So we don't have that now. We have 24-hour access. We have the Netflix, the Disney Plus, all the shows are on demand anytime you want. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's available. That's the
Yeah,
world has
yeah.
changed.
Yeah, educational content, everything is on there, which is supposed to make us better. I don't know, is it making us better as a society? What do you think?
I don't know. I guess there are pros and cons to it. There's some good parts to it, and there's
Yeah,
some parts that are not so good. And I think it's just our responsibility to find a good balance.
yeah,
I'm being able to do my CME on my phone real quickly means I
yeah,
don't put it on the long finger. But
yeah,
just
yeah,
finding a middle ground is important.
yeah. I mean, I've come across some recommendations where they say limit social media use to less than an hour a day, something like that. I can't really recall the exact number of hours, but and lately another article has said that parents and guardians should encourage kids to go out more often in nature and just be outdoors, play outdoors as opposed to being in the house. Apparently, it was better for their mental health. So, um, there are a lot of things. I think we have to be very proactive. So, with this, having this knowledge that social media is here to stay, this technology is here to stay, and we need to be able to function within these shall I call them barriers or temptations temptations that we find ourselves in. So you've provided a great overview. Is there anything else you want to add, especially with regards to your work? You're doing a lot in youth mental health. In fact, when I saw this topic, you're the first person that came to my mind, because you are the only child psychiatrist that I know who is on social media. I tell you, and when I saw that topic about how social media is adversely affecting emotional health, I immediately thought of you. And I'm so glad that you agreed to come on this show, basically to educate people. That's what we're here for. We're sharing knowledge. So, is there anything you can tell the audience, especially parents listening, about some of the work that you do and how they can engage and benefit from your knowledge?
Well, so I have a number of platforms on social media where I educate parents on youth mental health disorders and also how to care for their own health while they're looking after a child with a mental health disorder or any chronic health concerns. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on YouTube as at St. John Cap. That is SaintJohnCapp. I also have a podcast called Walking on Eggshells with Dr. Tolu, where I discuss the same issues. And so it's important as parents not to bury our heads in the sand. It's important to, get information, find a group of people who may be going through the same challenges, and just really empower ourselves, because that's the only way we can empower our children.
Mhm.
And again, you mentioned screens, limiting time on social media. There are a number of screen use guidelines that I found, and that would say that, for a kid under 5, maybe they should have maybe an hour max of screen time. Between ages of 6 and 9, yeah, during the week, you want no recreational use of screen time. Weekends, maybe 2 hours max per day. From age 9 to 12, it goes about 2 hours max per day, and with no online gaming. And then from 12 to 18, you can permit screen time only if they've met their responsibilities and you have no concerns about their use of the internet. So I
Okay.
think, just being mindful about those screen use guidelines is also important.
Okay, so just to clarify, I think what we're talking about screen time, it's not educational, it's not homework, we're talking about recreation use,
Yeah.
gaming, just chatting, idle time online. And social media is so addictive. When you look at platforms like TikTok, it can be entertaining. So if you don't have anything better doing, you can be there for hours just whiling away time and just being entertained, just being
Even if you have
entertained.
something better to do, you could put it aside and forget that you have other things to do if you're not disciplined.
That's true. And that's where that addictive behavior kind of starts to set in, when you start to neglect other areas of your life because you're engrossed in the social media pool, you know. And it seems like everybody's out there. There's so much content. And, it's almost like, some people call it this aspirational lifestyle. You see what people are doing and you think their life is better than yours, and you stay glued and you aspire to be like them, and there's all that pull. So I think this topic is important, and I hope that parents and guardians will find some useful nuggets from our conversation as to how to navigate social media use in their kids. So what else do we want to talk about? We still have some time. I think we have about 5 minutes or so.
Well, I have a website, it's www.stjohncap.com, and on it I have information, again, education about different mental health disorders in youth, and also how parents can look after themselves. So there's so much information. I have links to other websites from other organizations. So it's important for parents to know that there's a lot of information out there, but you want to get your information from sources that are accredited, or that are, I don't know, I'm not sure what the word is now, like really well verified sources, because
Yeah,
there's also information that's not so accurate out there.
yeah.
So it's important. The American Academy of Pediatrics has a social media plan that you can actually develop for your family. It's available freely on their website. And if you go into it, you can put in your name, your children's names, their ages, and create a plan of how you as a family want to handle the use of social media, almost like an agreement that you come to about balancing tech with, offline activities, planning screen-free activities, making a habit of turning off media, within a particular amount of time, having fewer apps on your devices, learning how to recognize ads on the internet, using empathy and kindness, being polite and considerate, exploring privacy settings. It just gives you so many tips that as a parent you may not think about on your own, but it helps you, to broaden your thinking about social media use and to be proactive when you're talking to your kids about it as well.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is put the link to your website in the description of this video or wherever I post this video. So it can go on YouTube and Facebook. So wherever I post it, I'll make sure that I have a link that shows evidence-based information that you've talked about. And this is coming from, an expert child and adolescent psychiatrist. It doesn't get any better than this. So if you want to get your information on mental health in kids, this is where you want to go. You want to go to Dr. Lugo's website. So I'll have the link in the bio. So I think we've had a very nice discussion today. Yeah, thank you so much for your time, for spending this lovely day. It's the weather is getting nice outside, so it's we,
It is.
we don't want to be spending all day doing podcasts. We want to get out and get some sunshine. And I want to thank you for your time. I know you're busy. You have a very busy schedule, and I'm glad you could come out here and provide this useful information to parents and guardians. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on your platform, and this is great work you're doing, providing this kind of education. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.